CJ Lehigh here with the next installment of our All the Marbles story. When last we left our hero, he's met a strange girl with a strange accent. Sounds like she might be, I don't know, Irish. And they're hiding from some guys riding around on horses. It looks like our hero has been transported back to the Civil War. So we'll find out what happens today. Who are those guys? I crouched a bit lower. She scanned the horizon, still empty, before answering. I dunno. Richmond Hussars from Georgia, but I kinda think they're regulars. One of them, Wilkes, I think, he tried to stop them, but they're wild. They shot Mum and Dad. She broke off and again buried her face in the dirt. They shot Mum and Dad. Then they set fire to the house. So that was the smoke over the hill behind us. This girl had run from... I still didn't know who she was talking about. Georgia? Richmond? More gunshots. The cap reappeared along the top of the hill, and now it came with a head and a body as the man rode to the top and looked down into our valley. He was in uniform, gray, with a long sword on his hip and a short-looking rifle in his left hand. He reined in the horse. I flattened myself slowly on the ground and wished for my marble. The man slowly started walking his horse down the hill into the valley. The girl sucked in her breath and clutched at me. He came down along the only path there was and stopped again right at the place I'd appeared, where she'd crashed into me. He scanned the ground as if he were looking for something, and I wondered for a flash if maybe he'd seen my marble, but then I realized he was seeing the mess we made of the grass there. After a second, he raised his head and looked around the area, for sure trying to find us. There were 2 or 3 paths through the meadow, though, and he couldn't tell which one we took. There were bushes and downed trees here and there. Once he even looked right at our bush, but I guess he didn't see anything to investigate, because after another second or two he hauled up the reins and took the horse over to the creek to get a drink. He was maybe 100 yards off. I put it together, where I'd seen a fellow like that before. He's a Confederate soldier, I whispered. Her eyes were wide and white. She nodded. Cavalry, Cobb's Legion, most like. This was totally impossible, but one of the great things about 4th grade is that the impossible seems a lot easier to believe in. It's the Civil War, I said. She looked over my clothes again. You're a Yankee, she said, casting a quick glance back over to the cavalryman. But he was sitting under a tree, his cap over his eyes and his stringy black hair laying on his shoulders. His horse slurped at the river a few yards off, making quite a racket. I'm from Virginia, I said, and she reacted like I had said, I'm a cobra, jerking her hand back from me and scooting closer to the bush with her lip curling in a snarl. You're a Reb. You're one of them, she said, a bit louder, slapping at me. No, I'm not, I said. I'm a 4th grader. I'm not part of the war. She didn't look like she believed me or even knew what I was talking about. I don't even know what I'm doing here. Where is this place? Now she was even more scared, if that's even possible. What are you on about? It's Virginia here. Spotsylvania. You got here somehow. I got here by marble, I said, but I didn't expect her to understand or even believe me. I wasn't sure I believed it myself. But wait, I said, you're a Virginian too then. You're a Reb. Why would the Confederates be after you? She spat. I'm Irish, she said. Dad and Mum moved to Spotsylvania 5 years on when I were 8. We have no side in the war, but the war found a side for us. That explained the weird accent. It sure wasn't Virginian. But that gave me an idea. When is this? She looked at me with no understanding. I mean, what year? It's 1864, as you very well know. I'm from 2013. She shook her head like she was talking to a madman, which maybe she was. But she relaxed just a bit and looked back at the cavalryman. He was asleep. His horse was munching grass. It was peaceful. I needed my marble, and now was as good a time as any to go get it. I was much closer to the likely spot than the soldier was, and he was snoozing. I carefully stood up, keeping the bush between me and him, and said, I'm going out to look for my marble. The crazy look came back into her eyes. You can't. We'll both be caught. They'll kill us. It did make a fellow hesitate. I crouched back down to think about it some more. Good thing, too, because just as I did, another rider crested the hill and looked down into the valley. He saw the sleeping man and leveled his rifle. There was a crack, and some birds exploded from the tree over top of the soldier, who jumped to his feet, his cap flying, and reached for his belt, looking around wildly. The man at the top of the hill guffawed and slapped his gray cap to his horse, which came galloping down the hill. The sleeper, now all awake, slammed his cap to the ground and swore. He yelled out, "Early, you're a Yank!" This made the other man laugh all the harder. "You're sleeping on watch. You're supposed to be looking for the girl." The girl was right in front of me, and she gasped. "Right pretty piece, I'd say she was," Early said, "if a bit green. We could ripen her up right enough." The newcomer gazed about the valley, scanning right over us, but he didn't see anything about our bush that attracted his interest either. We were as still as if we'd been whittled out of wood. "Wilkes is gonna make trouble for sure," the new man said. "We'll be heading back to Cobb's at the courthouse before long. Grant somewhere about. We'll be meeting him soon, I shouldn't wonder." "All the more reason for us to get ours and get out. He's not going to chase a company of cavalry, and we can outride anyone he sends after us." The new man appeared to consider that. "Let's find the girl," he said, grinning nastily, "and see how the day goes." "She was here," the first man said, pointing back up the hill a bit. "Or someone was. There's odd prints there and some bent grass. She couldn't have got far." Both of them grabbed their horses' reins and started walking back up the hill toward the place the girl and I had met. She whimpered, "They'll catch us," her breath fast with fear. I couldn't see how they could miss, really. I hadn't considered my shoes, but the ground was pretty soft, and I was wearing my new Nikes with a lot of tread on them. That was a track they sure hadn't seen in 1864. How could they miss finding us? Slowly, knowing they had command of the whole valley, they walked up the hill and stopped at the meeting spot about 50 feet away, looking down. The first man pointed. "See? Right there. Never seen the like myself." They bent down to get a better look at the ground. Both of them had backs to me, and I saw a chance that might not come again. I reached in my pocket and grabbed a steely. I got to one knee, ignoring the girl's frantic grabbing at my pant leg. Maybe it was because I couldn't believe any of this was real, or maybe I'm just nuts that way, but I had a kind of weird courage. I raised up over the bush and fired the steely at the rump of the closest horse, dropping flat as soon as I let go. I have a pretty decent arm. I pitch for my Little League team and stuff. 50 feet is about the distance from the rubber to home plate, and a horse's backside is a really big strike zone. I hit the horse square on the butt, and it reared up like it was shot and bolted up the hill. The two men shouted and grabbed for the other horse to stop it from doing the same. The first man swore again and started up the hill. After his galloping ride, while the new man mounted up and gave chase. In a minute, both men had disappeared over the rise. I was out in the field as fast as I could go, down on my knees, scrabbling around in the grass, trying desperately to find the marble. Nothing. "Come and help me," I said, in an urgent whisper I didn't really think she could hear, but I didn't dare speak any louder for fear someone else would hear me. Eventually I saw the top of her head above the bush, but she was still timid as a mouse after being played by a cat. "Come back, you'll get caught." "If they come back, we're caught anyway," I said. "We have to get out of here." "We'll run then." "And find more of them over the hill? No thanks, I'm finding my marble." She was most of the way out from behind the bush now, still crouched and looking up the hill anxiously. "What marble? You're on about this marble, and what is it?" "You don't play marbles?" "Me brother, he pitched stones. He's dead as well, shot by the Yanks 2 years back." This is kind of like that. I was frantically pulling up handfuls of grass. She could watch the hill. I had to find the glassy. "I found a marble at school today, and when I pinched it a certain way, I came here. If I find it again, maybe we can go back." "Back where? To the... whenever you say you're from?" 2013. Yeah, it's a lot safer than being in the middle of a war. Nothing. I couldn't find it. I stood up and tried to get back to the same position I had been when I appeared and recreate the impact, and maybe over here a bit? Maybe. She stared at me from 20 feet away, and tears ran down her cheeks. "This is home," she said. "I don't belong in your home." I looked up at the smoke column rising over the hill. She knew what I was looking at, and sniffed. For a moment I stopped looking for the marble and looked at her instead. "I'm sorry. I don't know what to do. All I can think is to get out of here, and there's no better way out of here than 150 years into the future. I don't think any army, blue or gray, can come and get you there." She didn't move for a moment, then she looked back over her shoulder at the smoke. "Home," she said. "There's no home here for me. No home and safe is better than no home and in the hands of Cobbs." And she got down on her knees and started scrabbling in the dirt. So there we go. Next time, we'll find out the conclusion of our story and whether our hero and his new friend are able to make their way back to 2013. Till next time, I'm CJ Lehigh.